a little bit. Come on. Come on. There you go. Gotta make room. Good morning. And Merry Christmas. I thought I'd do a special Christmas message, and what I'm trying to do is, well, I guess introduce everybody to Valentine here. She's going to be a camera hog, I guess, today. Anyway, I thought that what I was going to do today with this video is really summarize where I'm at, what I've come up with, what, let's say, a Gaia Ascension update on what's really happening, and kind of an overview of what I've been doing the last year maybe, and what I'm planning to do. I obviously am not going to cover all of that material, but we're going to start with we're going to start someplace, find out what that is. The first thing is, we're in exciting times, and the winter solstice through Christmas, even into the new year, is really a window where incoming energy, incoming spiritual energy, attempts to fill us to capacity. And so one of the most important things that we can do at this time of year is to really try to soak it in, to take in as much as we can, because it's got to last us the entire coming year. So that's what's important. And a little bit about global events. I have come to believe that we are looking at a shift of Earth's magnetic field, kind of a polar shift where the actual north and south poles are going to end up on the equator in about 20 to 30 years. I suggest this is a shout out to Ben Davidson and his Suspicious Observers YouTube channel. Every day he reads and studies the latest scientific papers that deal with solar forcing and climate change, cosmic forcing of things, and this is stuff that's on the dot, on the spot. I have to say, I really support his work, and I count on it. I look for it. And one of the things that he's talking about is that these polar shifts, these magnetic excursions that happen on Earth, on Gaia, are cyclical, and that every 12,000 years they happen, and one is happening now. And humanity has survived through, I think it's 4 of them. Okay, but it's hard. It's been hard, and humanity has gone to the Stone Age or the Bronze Age, if you're lucky, each time, and we may be looking at that happening. However, he places that about 30 years from now. Okay, so, but in the meantime, what we're having is a deterioration of Earth's magnetic shield, the magnetosphere. That is real. That is happening. And as the Earth's magnetosphere deteriorates, more harmful radiation and material comes in from the sun in solar forcing, cosmic rays from the galaxy itself. In other words, the weather is getting bad, climate is getting worse, and over the next 20 years, up to the time when the actual shift happens, and the magnetic sphere reasserts, the magnetosphere reasserts itself, up until that happens, there's just going to be a deterioration of things. I have become firmly convinced of the reality of that. I've become firmly convinced that the governments of the world and the elite know this, they're preparing for this, and there's not much they can do other than ride it out. That's why they are creating safety places where they think it's going to be safe, and everything that's happening globally on a political level, on a food level, on a medical level, on a social level, everything is in play for they're trying to set themselves up, the individual powers that be are trying to set themselves up for coming out of this on top. The point of what I'm getting at is, it's my sincere belief there's no true effort at solving things, at solving the crises that are going on in our world today. There's no serious attempt to find solutions because the people that are in the know, they understand there's not really much we can do except ride it out. And so they're just trying to better their hand, if you will. And because there's no serious attempt to solve these situations, what you're going to see is what seems to be eternal gridlock. And ultimately, that gridlock is a safety mechanism because they're going to try to ride things, they're going to try to keep the status quo as long as they can. That's what we're seeing. That's how I believe it's going to play out. And ultimately, each individual has to find a way to look out for their own welfare and well-being, and for that of their loved ones. We're going to be on our own. Now, I believe that that the most important thing that we can do right now in these next 10, 20 years is to find ourselves in self-sustaining communities as self-sustaining as possible, so that as things get worse, each community is not reliant on things that are happening in another state or another country or another world, that we're not reliant on our food sources from another place in the world, that kind of thing. So just kind of have this in the back of your mind. self-sustaining communities, you could call them like city-states, is ultimately what we might be looking at, where there's still a sense of community, but we're really trying to kind of preserve what we have in the area that we have. And each one of us who is part of Gaia's ascension is creating in their own area, is helping to create such a community. So it's time for us to kind of reach out to others, share our message, and try to consider this self-sustaining thing, how we can do it. And try to store some food up ahead for some hard times. Expect some bad things happening. Not tomorrow or whatever, but things are gradually becoming worse. As a layman, what I'm led to understand that what's going to happen is the atmosphere, the environment, the earth itself, and us, we are going to become increasingly loaded with what I would call, for lack of a better word, static electricity. And as the static electricity becomes more and more prevalent due to the breakdown of Earth's magnetosphere and due to the incoming solar and cosmic forcing, things are going to start shorting out. And it can happen in our minds. We're already seeing it happen in our minds. We're seeing it happen as the shadow. All of our repressed emotions and stuff are starting to pop out. They're starting to be released. You're seeing psychotic behaviors more and more, and that's going to increase as the stresses increase. Cognitive dissonance, because there's going to be the difference between people who live in their heads and people who have their feet on the ground. I'm suggesting that the most important thing that we can do in these days moving forward is to have our feet on the ground and to try to consider this concept of self-sustaining survival in a community setting, because we can't do it by ourselves. Find like-minded spirits. One of the ways of doing that is to share the message. That's what I'm trying to do, is just share what I believe is happening, that's in the process of happening. Now, in the context of global events, in the context of politics, what's really being, it's like a shell game. People are taking it. These people in positions of power are trying to grab more power for the end game. Like I said, nobody's going to seriously attempt solutions to the problems that we have. We already see an abandonment of the common person by the people in power, by our governments. And that is going to increase. I'm just saying it, I'm putting it out. You can put this as a prediction for the coming year, 2023. But this is what's going to happen, as a betrayal of the average person. The financial crisis you're going to experience, we are going to experience, we are experiencing now, but don't expect it to stop. Rising inflation. The reason they're going to try to keep things going as long as it can and ride it until it breaks. And that's what's going on across the board. Whatever subject, whatever interest topic that you take, it looks to me like they're going to ride it till it breaks. And when it breaks, it's everyone for themselves until this is all over. Okay. That I've basically said. Now, what can we do? What can I do? What can you do to empower ourselves and to protect ourselves and our loved ones during these times? Obviously, being a prepper is one of them, but having the right mindset is one of them as well. But even more important, I think, is it's a spiritual component. And the spiritual component is where our consciousness, our awareness, needs to be more linked to the earth, linked to the organic reality. That's why certain types of meditations are going to help the different levels, the different layers communicate, so that we can be more open to opportunities, so that we can follow a higher guidance that is able to perceive realities and opportunities that our ordinary self cannot, that we're not aware of. So, and I know this is kind of jumping around, but this is just kind of a summary. So what I'm talking about is chakra centers and energy bodies, permanently activated energy bodies. We have 7 potential energy bodies that correspond to the 7 possible electron rings of the atomic atom, the atom. We have an innermost ring which is got 2 electrons, and then we have another ring, electron ring, that's got 8, and another one that's got 8, and then I think the next two more with 18, I believe it is, and then 32 and 32. And what these each culminate in a completed electron ring that is a noble gas. So what I'm getting at is a noble gas is the culmination. It creates a permanently activated astral body. We would call it non-physical, but it has, as being an element of itself, it is a type of physical body, and it's a type of what they would call immortal physical body. And these are at the core of all your mystery traditions, religions, spiritual paths. They understand these things and how to build them up. But each chakra center, it represents one of those. We're talking archetypal. Well, first there we'll just go through the types of energies, and I've covered this before. I'll be covering it again, and this is just a quick overview. But at the top is source energies, which is the photon. We try to tap into the photon for our source of cosmic and spiritual power. That source of power fuels everything. It fuels everything, even the cells of our bodies. It fuels the formation of atoms and molecules. And hydrogen then actually represents the first atomic particle that would represent unity, and there's actually the threshold, the atomic threshold, where matter exchanges into energy and energy exchanges into matter. You have the speed of light, you have all of these things. It's a critical threshold. Above it, you have basically photons, electrons, and magnetic field energies. Above that, then you start getting into what's considered the physical elemental realities. And the first electron ring with two elements, hydrogen and helium, represents archetypal reality, black and white, the ultimate duality, if you will. This next electron ring is mental energies. It's actually the abstract mental energies, philosophical energies. So it's, and there's eight of them. It's like the 8 senses, because each electron ring has so many electrons, and each one of those electrons represents a sensory input, ways that we can experience the environment. But you're going to have archetypal energy, you're going to have unity, archetypal energy, abstract spiritual, concrete spiritual, which is how we perceive reality. Then you're going to have your abstract mental, which is the philosophical and creative. That is actually the first element ring with 8 electrons in it. The concrete mental is going to be below that, lower with more dense, if you will. But still it has 8 as well, which is concrete mental energies, which is just awareness, our consciousness. Below that, you shift to more sensory inputs, but you're going to have your upper emotional self, and then the next ring, lower emotional self. Then it jumps to the 32. You have what we call the physical, and then at the bottom, the etheric. It's interesting that they kind of match up. 2 of them to one type of energy, 2 of them to the next type of energy, 2 of them to the next type of energy, with the archetypal way at the top. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. What's important is that each electron ring, and there's 7 of them, can potentially form a permanently activated astral body. And each permanently activated astral body has its own awareness, its own intelligence, and functions independently. The point that I'm getting at this is a little bit hard to maybe understand, but people who are capable of doing astral travel, astral projection, or mental travels, mental projections, remote viewing, or whatever it is, they are traveling with the out of body with these particular types of energy. And what happens is a lot of times when they go out of the body, we do it every night in sleeping with our dreams. But the question is, can you remember what happened in your projection? Can you remember what happened in your dream? The ability to remember is totally dependent upon whether you have built bridges of communication between one body and the other. And also between one body and what we call our physical body. That's why one of the experiences of astral projection is called the mind split, because you're actually aware of maybe your physical body that's sitting in a chair while you're astral projecting, and another part of your awareness is aware of being outside the door waiting to come into the room, for example. And when they meet, they have to kind of coordinate for the memory to cross, for the information to pass from one level to the other. Otherwise, it'll be lost. It won't come into our physical awareness so that we're aware of it. That is why these meditations that I had talked about previously are so important. These meditations that link chakra centers create communication highways between each type of energy, and they allow our extrasensory abilities. That's what helps us to become more aware on more levels at a time. And having 7 different awarenesses shows how difficult this really is, because we keep thinking, oh, I'm just one awareness. And what happens is we skip from one to the other, like changing channels on the TV or changing channels on the radio. We're not blending, we're not merging them, and what happens is we're not aware of one. We go into one area and we totally lose our ability to be aware of the other. And that creates a problem when it comes time to bring information back. So anyway, I'm going to try to summarize what I've talked about here. What I've talked about in the beginning was, I believe that we are in our world that we're living in is in the process of going through a magnetic excursion. It's going to take 20, 30 years. It's already happening. The poles are shifting. The North Pole is shifting over 30 miles per year and speeding up. And this process is getting worse and worse. And as that happens, Earth's magnetosphere is deteriorating, and that is the true cause of the weather, the climate change that's happening around the world. It has nothing at all to do with man-made climate change. It's a cyclical event, and what's happening as the average population is being manipulated to be taken advantage of so that people can kind of get rich and empower themselves at the last thing. And ultimately, there's no intention by those in power, there's no intention to find solutions because there are no solutions. So they're going to try to ride it out and come out at the end, and gradually the average individual is just going to be abandoned to their own devices to fend for themselves. That is why we need to be thinking about forming communities that are self-sustaining. We need to think about becoming more self-sustaining for ourselves and being able to look out for ourselves and look out for our loved ones. And the best way that I know of to do that, through some form of prepping, but also through a mindset, educating ourselves and developing communication lines between each aspect of ourselves through these meditations that I was talking about. So hopefully my summary kind of clears up the rough spots on what I was talking about. In the future, I'm going to be offering some of these meditations because there's always a starting place. You always start out at the starting place. We begin with baby steps. We always do. And these are learnable things. We don't have that much time left to learn them, to master them. I'm suggesting that every day we should come up with a routine that helps us to develop our individual astral bodies, if you will, to develop our chakra centers, and to do at least one meditation in a day. That's pretty much the best that we can do. And if we have to be kind of choosy what we're doing, and that's one of the things that I'm ready to offer, is what I consider some of the best meditations that I know of and I use for myself, or I have used over the years. I've been working with creating my own meditations for probably 30 years now. And way back in the 70s and 80s, I was studying Dick Sutphin. He was the first one to come out with meditations that were really working with self-programming and altered states, because that's one of the areas that we're getting into with these meditations. Self-programming, working with altered states, that kind of thing. That's it. That's pretty much all that I have. We'll see you next time. Come on, let's go.